Hey, hello again, everyone. Once again, it's your boy, the Invincible Chef, back like I forgot something. We've gone through a whole bunch of different recipes and scenarios where we, in barbecue, can be versatile and we can enjoy ourselves with lighter fare. We can substitute items and things like that. But you know what? It's not a good idea to be one-dimensional. So one thing I like to do is to accentuate the experience for barbecue fans and everything else is to bake. I started out baking, doing pastries and pies and cakes and things like that, and expanded my repertoire to all the other things that I know as far as cooking is concerned. And one of the things I love to make is my award-winning sausage bread. Now, I can't take all the credit. It's my mother's recipe, but it's undefeated. Everybody in my family knows how to make it in some variation, way, shape, or form. But you know, me being the Invincible Chef, I had to put that spin on it to make it so it's gonna be totally unique. So what we're gonna do today is take the main ingredients, which are some thawed out dough, okay? Some pepperoni for the pizza bread, with a little bit of mozzarella sauce, mozzarella cheese, and some light cheddar cheese in a nice mixture. And some Jimmy Dean sausage, about 3 pounds of that. Mixed together is gonna be the filling for the sausage bread. Now the sausage bread is a home run hitter. So it's something that you can make and eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner, hot or cold. And one way you can really spin it is if you have some jam of some sort, you can spread a little on the side of it that's toasted or dip it in there. But you can't lose, you can only win. So right, hearing that, let's begin. First we're gonna do, pull out our dough and get some separation between the loaves. Because one of the things you need to do is make sure that your dough is floured pretty well. And this is, because when you roll it out, some of the moisture is gonna come out and it's gonna make it stick to the cutting board. So what I like to do is keep a bag near filled with flour. And when I pull that out, I sprinkle some on the bread and make sure a good amount of it lands on the cutting board. Because just like you use oil to lubricate joints and everything else, the flour keeps the dough from sticking. But you gotta share that, you gotta spread that around. So now that they all have a decent coating on them, what I'm gonna do is take this styrofoam container the dough came in, we're gonna start with one roll at a time. And I'm gonna show you how we can take one of these and make it into 2 loaves. First, we have to get a nice, even coat of flour. Doing that, like I said, creates that separation from the board and keeps the moisture on the inside of the dough till you roll it out and make it thinner. Then we're gonna get a rolling pin. I'm gonna use this small plastic one, so that way you can see all this in the frame. There's bubbles on the edge of the bread. So, okay, you're gonna roll those gases out of the rising dough, because the warmer the dough gets, the more it's ready to rise, because the yeast is already in there. So you're gonna roll it out because you wanna flatten it and you wanna remove the bubble. It's okay if you hear that popping because you're forcing the gas bubbles out of the bread. One thing I do is like to roll the pin in the flour, because that makes it so that when I get that close contact, when I start to thin out the flour and the moisture shows up, or thin out the dough and the moisture shows up, they'll slip right off of the roll instead of getting stuck. So you just do this back and forth, almost massage it in a way, because it's gonna be very pliable. But you wanna, it'll snap back when you roll it out. As you can see it receding right there. So you keep getting that flour on the rolling pin and you're gonna roll till you get all the bubbles out. Because the reason why you don't wanna have those bubbles in there is because when it bakes, the hot air is going to make that gas expand and then pop bubbles in the bread. You end up having holes in your bread or big knots and bubbles on the side, none of which you want. So after a while, you're gonna have to flip it over and make sure that you have some residue of flour so that when it gets done, it's not gonna stick. Because as you do this, you're exposing the moisture as it stretches out. And you do not want it in a situation where it's going to stick. And you see it's getting wider and getting a little bit longer, and that's fine. So what we're gonna do with this is make one big piece. See, I'm almost done with the bubbles on each end, and that's gonna make sure I can have a flat, even piece of dough. So what I'm gonna do right now is taking a quick break so I can get a blade so I can split this dough up. We can make 2 loaves out of this. I'm gonna show you how to do that. You kind of economize on what you're using and everything, but also you can explore different ways to cook different sizes of these and even do buns and rolls in conjunction. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. So we got this dough cut. We've rolled all of the gas bubbles out, and now it's time to apply the filler, in this case for the sausage bread. So I'm gonna reach right in here. We got that brown sausage mixed with the mozzarella and the cheddar cheese. I'm gonna take that and put it right down the middle, right down Main Street, okay? And then as we get this filler in there, we're gonna shape it toward the center, best we can. All right, and make it so that at each end there's gonna be some of this goodness, sausage and cheesy goodness from one end to the other. Now, people see this and they're like, oh, that's it. No, that's not it. Traditionally, when people in my family made sausage bread, they would put some on the edge and then roll it and put some more and roll it so there's kind of like a swirl with sausage in between. And that's the oven. We're at the temperature we need so we can bake. Nice reminder. So here we go. We've got it rolled out. We've got it stretched, now we got it filled. So what we're gonna do now is the thing that makes it special, so you can see the Invincible Chef sausage bread. I'm going to go ahead and put these strips, cut these strips across the dough, right adjacent to the filler. Because when it comes down to it, you don't have Invincible Chef sausage bread if it's not braided. So, do the same on this side. Line them up by width and by position. After you do this a bunch of times, it gets pretty, you know, you're pretty accustomed to doing it. You can eyeball it. But I strongly suggest measuring when you first get started. So everyone sees these splits right there. Those are going to be the tabs that end up getting braided. So I take the end of the bread on each end and fold it over. This right here makes sure you have a nice tasty bun for the sausage at the end, and it keeps the meat from spilling out, all right? So you get this, we take those end tabs and we stretch them up the side of the stuffing of the filling to give basically like a little wall to hold everything in there, okay? And then after we do that, we see that, we just go ahead and start with the braid. You can go left over right or right over left, whichever makes you comfortable. But then when you do that, we tuck them into the sides over here, okay? And we continue to do that overlap. Sometimes you may have to go in and cut those strips a little deeper to make sure that you can do what you gotta do, that's fine. As long as you're consistent in how you do it and you make sure your dough is thick enough. You don't want to roll it out too thin. So, one end over here, tuck it. Other end right here, tuck it. And we're gonna keep doing this. And you know what? Take your time. You don't need to rush. As I'm looking down at this, I'm focusing on making sure that I don't run out of these braids before I get to the end. Because there's been times when I first started doing this, I got a little motivated, a little ahead of myself, okay? So I got 2 more left, so we're heading towards the end. So we're doing pretty good. And it's a fat one, so you can stretch it across. You can pinch and manipulate the dough so you can cover up as much as you need or have little openings if you feel the need to do that, okay? And I get down here till we see where the braids are, and I got 1 more flap at the end. I'm gonna bring that, tuck it under the bottom of the loaf, and bring this one, stretch it a little bit, close that gap, and then tuck it under that side. And now what you have is a braided loaf filled with sausage bread's goodness and ready to be put in the oven. So what I'm gonna do right now is get another piece of dough ready, and I'm gonna get a couple of eggs so we can make a wash. Because when we put that egg wash on the top of here, it's gonna make it look outstanding. Gives you a nice crisp crust on the outside and enhances that flavor all together. So hold tight, we'll be right back and we'll get finished with this sausage bread. All right, everyone, we've completed the sausage bread. We braided the rolls and they're in the oven right now. What we're doing right now is making the pizza bread, which is the pepperoni companion to the sausage bread. First thing I'm gonna do is take a little bit of marinara sauce, just like one would a pizza. You don't need too much, but enough just to get that taste, you know, that's reminiscent of a pizza on the base right there. It's gonna be underneath your cheese and your Roma tomatoes, which I think is important to this because it gives it a nice flavor, nice robust flavor. Give that little Italianette pizza flavor, all right? And then we're gonna go ahead and get our tomatoes situated. And we take our mozzarella and we sprinkle it on here. Yeah, I used to work at Pizza Hut and I used to work at this place called Papa Joe's Pizza in Iwakuni, Japan. And it was funny because I used to yell out the order numbers in Japanese and all my friends used to laugh. But it is fun to make this and it's quite a tasty treat when done properly. So now we're gonna go ahead and grab us some pepperonis. Don't cheat yourself with these pepperonis, okay? Throw them in there. I'm gonna spread these on the top of the cheese because after this, we're gonna go ahead and put our Roma tomato slices on there. And that's gonna give us some texture, some juiciness, sweet and tangy, be activating the full experience of that marinara sauce underneath there and this cheese as it melts. So that's awesome. Trying not to let these pepperonis be stuck together too much. We want to spread them out, but we also want to make sure we have enough so that you can get a good bite of pepperoni there. So as I bring these down to the end, and I always like to reinforce it at the end so that, you know, nobody likes to get a heel end of a piece of bread and it's just a stump of baked dough or whatever, and it's kind of frustrating. So I like to make sure that whatever the flavor angle is, whatever the meat or the featured item in there is, I like to make sure there's plenty of that from one end to the next. It certainly enhances your experience. So I'm gonna take these Roma tomato slices. Look how rich and red they are. Juicy, firm, but not too hard, because they're just getting right. And then you have that juiciness that's really it's gonna bake out really well. So now we see we got those in there. And I'm gonna put a little thinner one that goes all the way to the end on that. Sorry to sub you out the game, player, but it be like that sometimes. So I'm gonna go ahead and move these to the side because we got a little work to do, okay? So we take the edges, stretch it a little bit. You could roll it out, but it's easier at this point to stretch it. And we're gonna get our knife and we're gonna cut right up to the filling, okay? To make these strips, okay? Try not to make them too wide, but we don't want them too thin either because we have some overlapping to do. So I put it right at the edge of where the filling is. You don't want to go too far because you don't want an opening underneath the bottom of the bread. That's a foul right there. Okay. All right. And what you do is you make mirror cuts on the other side. And I'm gonna move this out of the way so we can do that. Line it up. Like I said, being experienced with doing this, you can eyeball this. I've done it so many times. And as I get these mirror cuts, we're gonna have straps basically right across from each other. So what I'm gonna do at this stage is take the excess of the edge and just go ahead and trim that off because you don't want an extra bunch of dough giving that thick flap at the end. You gotta chew through extra bread to get to the flavor you're looking for. Once again, we're gonna take the edge, fold it over like a hood there, and bring those flaps down along the side of the loaf, of the filling of the loaf, okay? Not rocket surgery. You just go ahead and do that, it's easy. And it sets the stage for what happens next. Next, you're just gonna go ahead and grab your flaps, pull and stretch just a little bit, make sure it comes across, and then you do the overlapping braid. There, right over left, left over right, whatever your preference is, just make sure the braid is prominent. You can see it. You can see that crisscross action. You know, you're gonna have to tuck it and play with it a little bit to make sure it's right, but that's okay. Nobody expects it to be perfectly beautiful, because you know what? The flavor definitely will be. So people will be looking at it while it's being eaten. So you don't have to worry about it being aesthetically perfect. Just make sure that you stay with the theme, and it's gonna take some practice. You know, the first time I did one of these, I don't know what I was thinking, but it was delicious. But when you get that practice in, okay, and you can hold to the pattern, because it's long right there and flat, so it can be kind of frustrating to deal with. And you have little thicker materials inside of this with the, okay. All right. You get more play with it because this stuff is stacking up. Okay, so now we're getting towards the end. I'm gonna stretch these out a little bit, so make sure we hit that finish line and we don't have too large of gaps on the inside. You don't want the ingredients spilling out. Now, if it cooks and bubbles over a little bit, hey, that's fine. But you don't want them to be spilling out. Okay, because it gets thin at there. We take that fat one, stretch it over the end, and tuck it under. Now, that's gonna be a larger loaf, but what I do at this point is compress it a little bit, and then I go ahead and bring the egg wash. Early on, I mixed up a couple of eggs and a little splash of cinnamon for an egg wash that I put on these loaves of bread. What that does is make it have a nice crispy layer onto it, like a crust. So it gives enough the crunch to that chewiness that's gonna be in the bread. And it has a good flavor to it too. But nice golden brown, aged with that presentation, People like looking at it, makes them hungry, thinking, oh, that bread is gonna be delicious. And it will, but it's an extra element that you're providing for anybody that will be wanting to consume something like this. You make it, this is your art right here. This is your creation. You do it however you do it best, but these finishing touches right here, the egg wash and things like that, and make sure the braids overlap and they're tight and the straps are fairly close to equal length and separation. It's something for people to marvel at when they're thinking about this bread. Because trust me, I have quite a few people, and I can smell that sausage bread getting ready in the oven right now. I have quite a few people who really look forward to this when I bring it at holidays, because I really care and put in my due diligence to make sure the finishing is nice. It looks really good. And if it looks good, along with tasting good, that's a full circle experience when it comes to cooking and eating. Remember that. That's something important that you want to generate as far as an experience for your people. So there we go. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella on the outside there. And then we're gonna go ahead and put this on the pan. Now this is gonna be a little bit large for that pan, but that's okay. We'll make the adjustment. So what I'm gonna do right now is gonna take this loaf of bread right here and set it up so it's nice and compact and put it on the pan. When we get back, we'll be throwing that in the oven and we'll take a look at that sausage bread. So give us a few minutes, we'll be right back with you. All right, everyone, we're back and we're done. We got the sausage bread, small loaves, braided, Look at that golden crisp crust or whatever because of that egg wash. That's why it's important to take the time to do that. A little bit of egg, a little bit of cinnamon, and look at the end result. And then we have the pizza bread with the pepperoni and the mozzarella. Got the marinara sauce in there and a little bit of melted mozzarella on the top. It may look a little solid there, but it's actually a little bit crisp, tender, and soft, and filled with gooey pizza goodness. This is award-winning bread right here. All right, I've won competitions with this. You can perfect this recipe, and then you can put any twist on it that you want. Like make like a calzone with all different types of meats and vegetables and cheeses and things like that on it, but it's only limited by your imagination. I support you doing that because I'm going to give you all the tools that you need to succeed in making treats that everybody can enjoy. So this right here is sausage bread. Here's the pizza bread. I'm going to slice them up later and I'm going to serve them up. We're going to enjoy them thoroughly. You can do this any way you want. You can make it uniquely yours, but you'll always end up being exceptional and you can do it the Invincible way. Once again, you can find me on YouTube at Invincible Chef, all caps, one word. The Invincible Bear Fan on TikTok and on Instagram, and the Invincible Chef on Patreon. The presence is growing, and things like this gives me opportunity to connect with all of you. So please check me out on those socials, and then we'll get together for another opportunity to learn how to cook the Invincible way. Have a blessed evening.